Thanks for joining us here today at Berean Bible Institute. I'm Pastor Justin Lynn, and this is Pastor Andy Kern, Dean of Academics. We're delighted you've joined us as we learn how to get started at BBI. So, Pastor Kern, explain to me how a student can study from a distance with us here at BBI. Give us a bird's eye view.
Okay, so there's essentially two ways a student can be involved in distance education here at BBI. One of the ways, and the way that's kind of maybe most exciting to us, is the instructor-led virtual courses. The way those courses work is a student enrolls for a class that happens in our real-time semester. We usually divide that up into a couple of terms, but a student comes into the online class virtually and meets live with an instructor and their classmates. So it is very much kind of the second best thing to an in-person class. You're there virtually in live instruction. You're able to ask questions and get feedback and interact with whatever the instructor is teaching and so forth. So that's a really nice way to take distance education. The second option is our self-directed distance courses, in which that's certainly, as the name implies, more self-directed. A student would receive a syllabus, the textbooks, they would interact with the reading, they would have assignments, research projects, things like that. And within that self-directed class, they can start those at any time. They don't follow our semester schedule. So each individual student is given a specific individual schedule that they kind of follow. They have some dates in their course progress. They're given a certain amount of time and a few due dates to hit, but within the confines of that, there's a lot of flexibility. I can study morning, noon, or night. So it's those classes are helpful for people who maybe have a really full schedule or something and can't even commit to a virtual class with an instructor that meets at a specific time in the evening. So those are basically the two ways a person can take distance education classes here at BBI.
All right, let's first discuss the instructor-led courses, the virtual class that you were talking about. What are some advantages of taking a class that way?
Okay, well, the main advantage for a instructor-led virtual class is the instructor is leading it. You're meeting live with the instructor and the rest of the class, of course, the other students. So there's just immediate potential for feedback and interaction, questions. So it's just live, real-time getting together, just like you and I are doing here, only we'd be doing it virtually. And so that's, of course, a main advantage. A secondary advantage to it is, again, because other students are involved in real time with you, you can build up a little bit of community within the class. You kind of get to know the other students. Generally, we see each other and see the students in the software we use, and so it's just, as many of us know what a virtual online meeting is like, and it's very similar to that. So you can kind of build up a camaraderie and get to know each other a little bit more than if you were not seeing or talking to somebody in real time. And so just again, because of the nature of how it works, again, there's that immediate feedback and being able to ask a question about the syllabus or my assignment and having immediate instruction from the teacher. And so really, I guess to summarize for the virtual instructor-led classes is it's the next best thing to a in-person class, that you'd come to school and be in a group and be in a class with somebody. This is the next best thing because we're trying to simulate that virtually.
Certain, I've had the opportunity to sit in on one of your classes recently, and as both graduates where we came to school in person, it seems as if that's one of the best ways to replicate that, the relationship building and the dynamic learning environment.
Right, I totally agree with that.
All right.
And I'll add too, one of the advantages to the virtual-led classes, or the instructor-led virtual classes, is that again, there's a high level of flexibility. These classes do meet in real time, so they are scheduled. They generally meet for 8 weeks, and that's usually one evening a week for 8 weeks. Some of them do go 16 weeks. Most of them go 8 weeks. So there's an amount of flexibility in that is you're committing generally to an 8-week timetable, and the classes meet in the evenings generally. So a person could still be working in the day and take class in the evening, and so hopefully that's accommodating to most people's schedule as well.
All right, so let's turn the coin over. Are there any disadvantages or struggles that students might have specifically for instructor-led virtual courses?
Well, again, just because it is a 8-week commitment to a specific evening every week, you have to have the availability in your schedule to take the class, right? Versus our self-directed classes, which you can start any time and you take them, you work on them during the day when you have time. So we'll talk more about those later. But so if there's a disadvantage, that's probably the main one, is you just have to be available to take the class. And then, there is obviously some degree of using technology you got to have your own computer and your internet connectivity, or you could use a tablet or even a phone to join these classes. So you just got to have a somewhat level of technical awareness and experience, and we help students with that. Most students don't have any trouble doing our online classes. It's very familiar to them. Yeah. People who have used social media or done any kind of virtual online meetings, which we've done a lot of that this past year with the virus. So most people are very familiar and would have no trouble doing what we're doing. So it's to be a slight disadvantage, but not much of one.
You can almost look at it too, we're preparing our students for a lifetime of ministry. This is the world that we live in, using these tools that God's given us. So very it's true. Just a great training grounds for all of that. So now let's shift our focus away from instructor-led virtual courses, and now let's go that self-directed path. What are the advantages of enrolling in a program like that?
Okay, well, with a student enrolling in a self-directed distance class, the main advantage is simply it's a great degree of flexibility. It's about as flexible as we can be in any kind of a class setting. There's few constraints in a self-directed class. When a person signs up for a self-directed class, they receive a syllabus, and it has a custom schedule for the student to follow. Generally, a self-directed class allows the student 16 weeks to complete the classwork. And there are some due dates in there. Generally, maybe 4 dates, deadlines, if you will, a student meets in that 16-week period. But a student can start that at any time, and then that 16 weeks moves with the student. And then once they're in that 16 weeks, while they do have a few deadlines that they're hitting, within that period of time, they can study when it's convenient for them. They may have more time on the weekends. They may have more time on the weekdays. They may have more time in the morning, more time in the evening. They get to decide. They don't have to be online at a specific time on a specific day. It's much more flexible even than our instructor-led virtual classes. So that's a main advantage of just self-directed, and what obviously draws many people to that way of study. And so if we flip the coin, as you said a moment ago, and talk about maybe the disadvantage of self-directed courses, is simply that you are more on your own. We are here to support, answer questions. We generally touch base with the student at the midway point of a class. How you doing? What are your goals? What can we help with? And we try to talk and be there for the student. But the student it's very much, again, as it's named, self-directed, and the student is interacting with syllabus and textbooks. And so you do have to have a degree of self-motivation and to stay on schedule. And so it can be a challenge in that way, because we all know we can procrastinate and get behind, and that does happen from time to time. But we always work with students to finish these classes and get them accomplished in those things. But that can be a disadvantage.
So, you know me, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always studying, always taking a class of some sort. And I've taken both kinds of classes. I've taken, where I have a schedule and I'm with other students. And what those classes have often missed and lacked for me is that face-to-face interaction with my professors and my teachers. Right. But we have that. And then on the other side, there are some classes that I thought, I could get this content, I just need to move at my own pace. And so we even have that option to meet a lot of those pain points I've had as a student. We kind of have solutions for those here.
Right. That's exactly true. Again, we know there's never really a one-size-fits-all approach in anything, but I think with the two ways we offer distance education, we accommodate most people pretty readily and in a flexible way. You're certainly right with the self-directed. The disadvantage is there of, again, not as much interaction. We're here for you, but it's certainly different than if you have scheduled time weekly with an instructor. It's a clear difference. So again, I think that's certainly a disadvantage to those formats that you bring up there. But again, very accommodating with the two forms.
Sure.
And I'll add that today a student can do any program we offer through instructor-led virtual classes and self-directed classes. Some programs can be done completely self-directed, but even our larger programs, like our bachelor program, for example, could be accomplished through a combination of instructor-led virtual classes and self-directed distance classes. So our distance education program can take you where you need to go.
All right. Well, you just answered my next question. Can we go back and forth? And it sounds like yes, we can take.
Absolutely.
Whatever the needs of your life tell you, then you can kind of move back and forth between the two types of classes.
That's exactly right. And some students do that. You may have this semester, hey, I can take some instructor-led virtual classes. Maybe in the next semester, something's come up in my life, some other challenge in life or something else I need to take care of. Maybe I take a couple of self-directed classes in that period, and that's, again, part of the flexibility of our distance education offerings.
So, what final thoughts do you have, Pastor Kern, for maybe even a current student watching with us or a new student who's just on the edge, ready to get started with us?
Well, obviously, one recommendation is if you have any questions, give us a call. We'll be glad to talk you through it, explain it better. Don't hesitate to call or contact us, and we'll be glad to talk it through with you. I would certainly give my recommendation for any current student. If you've never considered it, do consider one of our instructor-led virtual classes, because I think you'll be greatly blessed by it. But if you cannot, and we certainly understand that for some students, then certainly continue on with the self-directed classes. But again, I guess my main thing would just to be that if there's any question beyond what we've discussed, is certainly reach out to us, and we'd be glad to explain it maybe even better.
No matter how you study with us, I think the point that I'm hearing here is we're here for you as our students, and we're here to serve you.
Right.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back again soon, where we dive deeper into how to study with us here at Berean Bible Institute.